For the third time this season, an NHL coach has been relieved of his duties, plus we also have a small trade and signing to discuss as well. We'll jump into all the latest news coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a variety of news topics to discuss tonight. A couple quick items here just to kick things off. We did have a small trade late last evening with the Washington Capitals and Vegas Golden Knights making a deal which sends forward Chandler Stephenson from the Capitals over to the Vegas Golden Knights in exchange for a 5th round draft pick. Now, a couple of things kind of fueled this trade. For one, the Vegas Golden Knights were looking to add some extra forward depth in that position. They clearly been having a little bit of difficulty with some secondary scoring. They've had some other players like Brandon Peary, Valentin Zykov, and even Nikolai Waugh as well, kind of going up and down. Not really work out. We've had a few of those other guys go through waivers recently and end up being demoted to the American Hockey League. So it certainly helps them add some extra forward depth. I mean, Stevenson seemed to be a little bit out of favor in Washington as well. Plus, Washington had to make a move because they do have Carl Hagelin being activated from long-term injury reserve as well. So they had to create some space for that transaction to take place as well. So either way, small trade facilitated between the two teams who formerly met in the Stanley Cup Finals not too long ago. But Chandler Stephenson is now a member of the Vegas Golden Knights. Now, we also had a minor signing as well, the Pittsburgh Penguins, signing veteran forward Stefan Noesen. Now, Noesen had been with the organization, but he was only on an American Hockey League contract. He's done very well this year in the AHL for the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins, playing in 22 games and putting up 22 points. So now he's been signed to an NHL deal for the league minimum $700K for the remainder of the season. So a little extra added forward depth for the Penguins as well. So a couple minor details there I just wanted to have a chance to cover off before we jump into the bigger news today, which is the New Jersey Devils have fired head coach John Hynes. As we know, of course, the Devils are having an absolutely terrible season, which is way worse than many people ever expected after all the moves that appear to be really good moves that Ray Shero made during the offseason, as well as drafting first overall and acquiring Jack Hughes at the 2019 NHL Draft. This team really looked poised to take some steps forward this year. There's been lots of questions around this team, especially the future of their top player in Taylor Hall, and now we have a coaching change, which is something that was necessary. Last night they had a very embarrassing loss at the hands of the Buffalo Sabres with a 7-1 thumping in that game, and really you could tell things were just kind of out of hand. Something had to be done, and Ray Shero has ended up firing the head coach, John Hynes, who's been with the club for the past 4.5 years. Now, of course, Ray Shero was hired as GM not long before Hynes. Of course, he ended up hiring Hynes as his head coach, somebody who he was very familiar with, as he had hired Hynes to coach with the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins of the AHL. Of course, Ray Shero's previous job was when he was general manager of the Pittsburgh Penguins organization, so he was very familiar with John Hynes, and it brought him over to give him an opportunity as an NHL head coach after seeing what he was able to do at the AHL level for several seasons. So clearly, is his own guy that he was very comfortable with, give him the opportunity, and things just have not progressed at all. They've made the playoffs once during the Shero-Hynes tenure in New Jersey. That year that they made the playoffs, they only won one playoff game, lost in the first round, and have missed the playoffs the other years, and are on pace to do the same thing again this year. Of course, like I said, they drafted Jack Hughes. They traded for PK Subban. They acquired Nikita Gusev. This team looked like they were really poised to make some strides forward. They were expecting a healthy Taylor Hall to bounce back this year after being injured a lot last year. Of course, you get Nico Hischier expected to make some steps forward. And this team really appeared to be heading in the right direction, but anything that can go wrong has gone wrong for the Devils this year, and change was necessary. Now, John Hynes, I think, is overall has a pretty good record of being a pretty decent coach. I mean, he started off coaching the United States National Team Development Program, where he had a lot of success for 6 years. Like I said, then he coached with the Penguins organization at the AHL level for several years before getting an NHL opportunity. I could certainly see him resurfacing at some point in another capacity, whether it be as an assistant coach or a potential another NHL head coaching job at some point. I don't really know if it's all on Hynes here, but something had to be done, and this was a much easier move than making a bunch of trades, which they already did during the offseason here. Now, taking over for Hynes is interim coach Elan Nasreddine, who was already with the organization as an assistant coach. Of course, Nasreddine was also somebody who Shero is quite familiar with. He coached with Hynes at AHL Wilkes-Barre Scranton previously as well, so he wasn't exactly new to Shiro or the other coaching staff here when he first came over to New Jersey after John Hynes became the head coach. Nasruddin himself was a former player, never really amounted to anything at the NHL level, was a minor league player, bounced around a fair bit of time before he got into coaching there. So he's been given the interim tag, so we'll see how things go. Of course, Ray Shero very well will likely give him the rest of the season, I would guess, considering where things are at. The season's pretty much lost, I think, at this point for the Devils. They would take an absolutely miraculous comeback for them to have any shot at making the playoffs, and obviously, there's several other areas of this team that certainly could be looked upon to be addressed, which now we're going to see even more spotlight on Ray Shero as a GM and the players to get more success on the ice here to see if they can get things turned around and get the ship righted here. But ultimately, I think there's a lot of holes with the Devils, and we very well could see some big moves, including a Taylor Hall trade. We might even see a guy like a Sami Vatanen, for example, might be a prime trade target as well, and really start to do a more of a thorough rebuild here with this Devils organization and build around some of their centerpieces like Hischier and Jack Hughes, etc., and see what they can do going forward. But John Hynes, the third head coach to be relieved of his duties so far in this NHL season. I do think there's some other head coaches that have been feeling some pressure here that we could see. Wouldn't be surprised maybe if somebody like Jeff Blashill in Detroit might be somebody who might be, the next one to go. So let me know what your thoughts are on this coaching change by the Devils. Can the new coach get things turned around? What kind of moves do you think Ray Shero really needs to make to get things corrected and back on track in New Jersey? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section and we'll continue the conversation. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing and turning on your notifications so you don't miss any future content. And give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it as well. I'd appreciate it if you did. As always, thank you for watching, and I will catch you next time.